On some levels, the mayor is very inclusive and open and welcomes immigrant communities. On others, I really think it's a bad mistake to use immigration law as civil, despite some of the rhetoric that all illegal immigrants are criminals and so on. In the United States, immigration is a civil offense, and I'm not someone who's in favor of using local police resources to enforce civil law. When we have, for example, we all know, in the same way we know that there's lots of illegal immigrants in Danbury, we also know that there's lots of small businesses like dry cleaners and restaurants that don't declare all their income, that lowball their taxes. We don't send out, we don't use the IRS to enforce local ordinances. When a restaurant doesn't pay its, that has health code violations, we don't send the IRS out to close down the restaurant. For some, I think it was a big mistake for the Danbury police to use the immigration service to try and get Ecuadorian day laborers to not go on the sidewalk. I think if the mayor were really extremely concerned that it was a visual blight on the park, the mayor should have talked to the Hispanic Center, which offered to have a day labor place there. Other cities do it. Some do it just like Danbury and more confrontational. Others, say New Haven, do it much more quietly, or up until recently. They recently kind of made a fuss about their policy, but in fact they have been quietly figuring out ways to solve certain kinds of practical problems like this. And so you didn't have these big public run-ins. I do think there's a price to the big public run-ins, and that is that immigrants don't want to cooperate with the police. I don't, in general, think that's good. I mentioned some of these battered spouse problems. I've had people in Danbury say to me, well, I really don't want to call the police, because when somebody comes to me who's in an abusive relationship, I try and say, I try and have a plan for them to be able to get out of their house if they need help. And if they need the help, I try and have a plan for them to, I talk to them about the police and making sure to call the police and what that means, or going to a doctor. And when people feel like if they go to the police, their immigration status might result in the immigration service being called, they don't really want to go to the police. Now, in fact, the mayor didn't target battered spouses. I don't want to exaggerate. The mayor targeted Ecuadorian day laborers. But I think that calling in the immigration service, and then unfortunately, although the immigration service, there are a lot of burdens that the immigration service has to meet, and it's not an easy job. But nonetheless, I think it was really an unlawful and dirty tactic. When you're near the border, you can look at anybody's papers anytime. When you're within the country, because we have some respect for privacy and so on, there's supposed to be a reasonable suspicion before an immigration officer asks to see somebody's papers. The question they asked those people was not, are you here legally? What's your immigration status? The question because people, might have not answered that. So instead, the question they asked was, you want a job? And they opened up the doors of the white van and the guys tumbled in. And that's not my idea of sensible law enforcement, and it's not my idea of the way the mayor of Danbury, enforces the jaywalking laws, because he thought the guys were getting off the sidewalk.